Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Alestral's deck profile for you. So this time I'm showing off a deck that I haven't taken to app locals just yet, or webcam locals either for that matter. I meant to say webcam, but I haven't tried it either. I've only done a little bit of testing with it, and that's going to be my build for Rhinosect. So as soon as I pulled Rhinosect from my Daybreak box, I knew that I wanted to try this card out. It seems very, very cool. It's very, very Yu-Gi-Oh!, very combo-y, and that's kind of the way that I've gone about building this particular Rhinosect deck. We've seen Rhinosect have some success in more of a Frost kind of a pile recently in the latest webcam tournament. And we've also, of course, seen the Knots have their Rhinosect profile with the Aeromares and stuff, but I wanted to take it a little bit of a different direction. I've seen other people do it and focus a little more from a combo-y kind of aspect, mainly increasing consistency and including as many cards as possible to do that. My inner Yu-Gi-Oh player definitely came out cooking with this build. So hope you all enjoy this deck profile. Also, I do have some pretty exciting videos coming up that you'll be seeing on the channel probably pretty shortly here. On top of that, you know, I don't know how much I can allude to it, but let's just say we're going to be opening some very exciting and some exclusive product. So definitely look forward to that. I'd also like to start doing gameplay videos on here too in the near future. So if you're excited to see any of that, definitely let me know in the comments below. But yeah, let's just, without further ado, go ahead and get into this here deck profile. Like I said, I haven't taken this to webcam or app locals just yet, but I have done testing with friends, and I have been fairly impressed with the results here. So, as with any Rhinosect deck, or any like real namesake deck, we're playing 3 Rhinosect, and of course not only that, we are also playing 3 of the base form, and that is going to be Rhinymph. So for those unfamiliar with these cards, I did hold up Rhinosect earlier, but also explain, Rhinosect is an 8/5 that costs 2 Frost. It can be special cast from your hand if you have a card that is originally an Alestral in your rune row. You can target and destroy the empowered Alestral. So, yep, as long as you have, you know, in your rune row, you know, an Alestral, a card that was originally an Alestral, you can just throw this down from your hand. And more importantly, if you have multiple copies, if you're lucky enough to have multiple copies, you can slam down as many as you want to because it is a special cast. So, 8/5 is a very, very good stat line for a 2-spirit Alestral. The 5 defense is great, even if it gets, you know, its defense, you know, forced in defense mode by something like Eddy or Mudlet or Tsunami. It's still extremely hard to kill most of the time. So, like I said, namesake for the deck and very, very powerful. The quote-unquote base form for this is going to be Rhinymph, although this doesn't work like most Ascensions and Alestrals do, right? So Rhinymph is a 1/5 for 1 Frost Spirit that says you can expend a Frost in order to move this Rhinymph to your rune row. It becomes an artifact through an empowering Alestral of your choice. With the effect, the empowered Alestral is suppressed and gets -2 defense. So normally, you know, with a 1 and a 2 line, you would on, you know, turn 1 play the 1 spirit, right? And then on the next turn ascend into the 2 spirit. But the way that Rhinymph and Rhinosect work is that you can actually in 1 turn play the Rhinymph, expend the Frost Spirit to move it to your rune row, equipped to an opponent's creature, or Alestral rather. Then, as I said before, you can special cast as many Rhinosects from your hand as you have. And I didn't even mention this, Rhinosect can also target and destroy any empowered Alestral, including whatever you put the Rhinymph on. So, very, very powerful. Rhinymph is going to end up eating Gorgon's Gaze a lot of the time, just because, of course, this is how your Rhinosects get online, but as long as you summon that defense mode, a lot of the time that's okay because this does have 5 defense. Sorry, I bumped the camera there. This does have 5 defense, which is, some of you may or may not know, is 5's a pretty good number in Alestrals. So this is going to be like the main sort of core of the deck. Like I said, some other builds play other Alestrals that can put themselves in the rune row. Aeromare is a big one, Spy Nymph I know is another one, but for this build, I really only have the Rhinymphs and the Rhinosect. I don't think Aeromare is bad. But I just did not want to include it here. Wanted to focus mostly on comboing out the good stuff, right? So for other Frost Alestrals, the only other 2 Frost Alestrals I have in the deck are 2 copies of Catarant. Catarant is a lot like Dratagua for water, and is Nemasail the card's name? There's the wind one that's like this too, but Catarant being a 1 spirit, 1 Frost Spirit, 3/1, that says, when Catarant receives 1 or more Frost Spirits, you can return up to 2 from your Underworld to your Spirit deck. So, as we'll be seeing here later in the deck profile, there are quite a few spirits we play early, Invoke runes in particular, rather, that cost a lot of spirits. So being able to cycle your spirits back into your spirit deck is important to this game in general, but in this deck, like I said, we're going to be expending a lot of spirits in the early turns, so definitely like having a way to recycle those. Up next, we have 3 Narpoon. This is a Water Celestial. It is a 4/3 for 1 Water Spirit that can search any 1 Spirit Frost Celestial from your deck and add it to your hand. Application here is, I think, pretty obvious. We can grab the Rhinymphs if we need to start our combos with that, or if we already have Rhinymph or really need more spirits, we can grab a Catarant as well. So 2 very good search targets. Like I said, these are the only Frost Celestials that we're playing in this deck. This is a little more focused on Rhinosect than, you know, being a Frost pile with the Rhinosect engine. So, got 2 Eddie! Edward! Just overall great card. A lot of us know Eddie by now. And if you're playing a decent amount of water, then you probably should just be playing Eddie. We're already playing the Narpoon, and we do also have Tsunamis in the deck, so no reason not to jam a couple of Eddies. We have the room for it. It's a good tempo play, so. And of course, we have 3 copies of Astrabbit. Not just because this is the best Celestial in the game and every deck plays 3, but our deck in particular is really looking to filter through our deck. Being a more combo-focused deck, we, like I said before, really value that consistency. So Astrabbit is actually more important for us than it is for a lot of other decks that are using it. And that's all of our Celestials, 16 Celestials. I have thought about playing maybe a few more, but once you get the Rhinosect online, a lot of the time, even one of these can just carry you to the win, so you really don't end up needing like a whole, you know, huge board a lot of the time necessarily. Plus, we have a lot of runes, as I've been alluding to help buff consistency that we'll talk about here shortly. But next up, we're going to talk about a little bit of removal. So for our non-Omni runes, for Invokes, we have 2 Cryoblast and 1 Earthquake. You know, these are pretty obvious removal cards. We're already playing a good bit of Frost. Cryoblast has not been, like, quite as good as initially perceived, right? It is still a decent card, and to be fair, it does kind of combo with Rhinymph, right? Because Rhinymph can give whatever is empowering it, or whatever it's empowering, rather, -2 defense, and then you can basically kill something with 4 or less defense instead of 2 or less defense with Cryoblast. But you don't really want to be doing that because then you don't have your Rhinymph anymore, and then you can't special summon Rhinosect. And also, you know, that's like 3 Frost Spirits just to kill, not even like any Celestial, just an Celestial with 4 or less defense. So I really wouldn't do a play like that unless I was really desperate. But again, we're playing Frost, so no reason not to play Cryoblast. And Earthquake is our only Earth card. So when this card first got limited, I was initially a little bit skeptical if you would, in many decks, actually want to go out of your way to play just this into Earth. But I think it does still end up being fine. And it's not like this deck is really hurting for removal, mostly because of the Rhinosect effect. But it's I still like having the option here. I still think it's quite good. Alright, so let's see what we got next here. 3 Tsunami. These are counter, obviously. These are the last of the non-Omni runes, and excuse me. I have 3 here because I think it's really important to stay alive until you are able to find the Rhinosect. While our build here is optimized to jam out the Rhinosect as early as possible, that doesn't always happen, right? So Tsunami is a great way of staving off a huge board and staying alive until you're able to more, you know, take control of the board or find that Rhinosect to finally get that advantage, right? Like I said, we're already playing a good bit of water. It's a pretty good water card. You don't have to play 3, but I like the idea of playing 3, again, just to stay alive for really as long as possible. Especially because, again, like I said, you are going to be playing a lot of runes early in the game, like a lot of Invoke runes on turn 1, and it's pretty easy to get lower than most decks on Spirits. Another way that this deck gets low on Spirits pretty early, actually, is mulliganing. I haven't even really talked about that, but you don't want to necessarily mulligan super aggressively to try to find Rhinosect. Like, I wouldn't you know, it's not like you should mulligan every opening hand that does not have a Rhinosect. But this deck, as a result of being a combo deck that, you know, does really want both of these, does mulligan more aggressively than a lot of other decks. So that's another way in which you get low on spirits fairly early. So like having the 3 Tsunami kind of helps with that. So the rest of the deck here is going to be the Omni Runes. So starting with Invokes, we have not only 3 Nectar of the Gods, but also combo deck staple, 3 drops of Leaf. I don't know about combo deck staple because I actually don't see many Elestrals decks play this card, and I kind of think it's at least a little bit slept on. So drops of Leaf, for those who are unfamiliar, it's an Omni Rune, like I said, so it's 2 of any spirit. It's an Invoke, so that's quote-unquote spell speed 1 for Yu-Gi-Oh players. Reveal any number of cards in your hand, then shuffle them into the deck and draw that many +1. So again, for those familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, this is Magical Mallet +1. This is actually a better mulligan in the form of a card, because it costs 2 of any spirit, like a mulligan does. It doesn't cost you a card advantage-wise because it's a +1, right? It's however many you put back +1, so you always get, you know, recouped for the drops of Leaf that you expended from your hand. And the reason that it's better than a mulligan is because you get to pick and choose what you keep in your hand. I guess the drawback is that you have to reveal the cards you're putting back, but that's completely fine. In this deck in particular, I like to use this card really aggressively. I put back Ambrosias, I put back Gorgon's Gazes, I put back PTAs, especially on turn 1 if I'm going first. I really like to be aggressive with the drops of Leaf to try to jam out the Rhinosect as early as possible, right? So, in similar vein, we have 3 copies of Nectar of the Gods as well. This one much more simple. Also 2 of any spirit, just draw 2 cards. It's basically a Pot of Greed. For Yu-Gi-Oh players, you might wonder why every Elestrals deck just wouldn't play both of these. Of course, the fact that your spirit deck is not only your mana, quote-unquote, but also your life total as well, definitely, you know, it coincides with that fact, right? That's why not every deck plays 3 Nectar of the Gods. In fact, Nectar of the Gods isn't even really a staple. It's like a semi-staple, right? Some decks play Nectar of the Gods, but a lot of decks don't. Because the 2 spirit for drawing 2 cards late in the game, not worth it at all. This card is at its best in most decks on turn 1, but we're such a combo-focused deck that we really want to be playing 3. And again, that's also why we're playing 3 drops of Leaf. Admittedly, I think the Nog issue is why drops of Leaf also just doesn't see play in most decks, right? This is really good early, but late in the game, especially if you just like top deck this, it's pretty bad. So it's basically just like, you know, you have to expend 2 spirits just to get your, you know, get a new top deck, basically. So, because you can put back 0. I'm fairly certain, I've seen people say that, that you can just choose to reveal 0 and just draw 1 card. But that's obviously, you know, much worse than a Nectar of the Gods. And again, when you're in top deck mode and late in the game, spending 2 spirits for this kind of a thing is not something you always want to be doing. So, but for our deck, for our purposes, for a combo-focused deck, I think playing 3 of each of these cards is very important. And the drops especially, is like I've alluded to, has been huge for consistency. Like, even just goldfishing turn 1 hands, drops gets you so many hands that are capable of putting out the Rhinosect on turn 1, or I guess the follow-up turn if you are actually going first. But, because when I goldfish hands, I only look at 5. I never assume I'm going second, right? Goldfishing, for those who don't know that term, is basically just drawing your opening hand and seeing how good it is, you know? More applicable for like a combo-focused deck like this one. We're playing 3 Ambrosia, it's Ambrosia, you know, I feel like I don't need to explain why there's 3 of this in any given Elestrals deck resting on your laurels. We're playing the 1 copy of that, because it's quite good. And, like, you might think, like, oh, should we really be playing resting if, you know, we have a 2 spirit as one of our main, you know, focal points. But, like, if you've got Rhinosect on the field, you're just winning. And at any other point, you're, like, almost assuredly going to have fewer spirits on board than your opponent, so resting ends up being quite good. And that's it for the Invoke Omnis. For the counter Omnis, it's a pretty standard lineup of 3 Gorgon's Gaze. We have 3 Poison-Tipped Arrow, as well as 2 Shield of Achilles. So, like I said, pretty decently standard lineup for the counter Omnis. And that is going to be the main deck. For the Spirit deck, we are on 10 copies of Flormine. Actually, there's only 9 there. Where's the... Unless I miscounted. No, I did. It's just miscount. Okay, so you have 10 Flormine. Not as many frosts as you might expect from a like Rhinosect deck, but as I again showed, we're not necessarily a dedicated frost deck either. You could play more of these frosts. It's kind of weird, right? Because most of the time you're basically just using them for Rhinymph and then into Rhinosect, but doing that even in one turn does still cost a total of 4 frost, right? That's another reason why I think it is important to play the Catarants as well, because it'll just recycle that frost, and you go through this pretty quickly. And then, of course, like I said earlier, you factor in your drops of Leaf, you factor in your Nogs, your Nectar of the Gods, and you're going to be burning through your frost pretty quickly. So there is definitely an argument to be playing more than 10 frost, but I think that this number is fine. And of course, we need the math for all of our other spirits, such as we have, is it 6? Yep, 6 Leviathans. So we play a total of 8 water cards, I believe, right? It's 3 Tsunami plus 2 Eddy plus 3 Narpoon. Yeah, makes a total of 8. So I think 6 water spirits is fine for that. That might even be a bit much. Like, I'm playing it safe with the spirit count here. You could go down to 5, and that's what I think I would probably take out for another Frost. But I don't think the 11th Frost is as good as the 6th water in this particular list. So, plus you can always just expend your extra water for like an Omni, you know, it's not that big of a deal. 4 spirits left, finally. It's just going to be 2 Zaptors for a 3 Astrabbit, and then 2 Taratlus for the Earthquake, the singular Earthquake. It's a little bit weird with the 2 Taratlus. Usually towards like mid/end game, if I haven't seen Earthquake, you kind of have to decide at a certain point if you're trying to give up on it. And just use these to cast like an Omni Rune. Again, I usually wait till like mid or late game to make that decision, just to make sure I don't like, you know, give myself a little bit of time to draw the Earthquake. But also, if you're in a spot where you're ahead and you have like 2 Rhinosects on board, that's probably not something you're gonna have to worry about anyway. But it is still definitely worth thinking about. So I don't have a side deck lined up for this just yet. I feel when it comes to side decking and Alestrals in general, I'm definitely not the most confident at all about that. And that's a skill that I really need to work on in general, because I'm a little bit out of practice when it comes to playing best of 3 in general. You know, my main game, of course, is Yugioh Master Duel, which is always best of 1. So another nice incidental thing I noticed about this deck just this morning, actually, is that there are no foil cards in here. So it's a fairly budget deck. Like, if you've gotten a few of the starter decks to get these cards right, and then you open... I mean, the Cryoblasts are rares, right? And so are the Rhinosects. But even then, those are the only, like, except for the Omni Runes, which again, a lot of this stuff comes in the starter decks, like, those are the only rare cards in here. So it's a very budget-friendly deck. I mean, Alestrals, of course, is a very budget-friendly game in general, which is, of course, very nice. But even for this game, I think this deck is very budget-friendly. So yeah, that's it. That's for my Rhinosect list. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, built it with more of like the sort of consistency of a Yu-Gi-Oh combo deck in mind, with our Pot of Greeds and our Magical Mallet, our better Magical Mallets, our Magical Mallet pluses. It's so good. So look forward to some more exciting content here on the channel. Gonna be showing off some stuff that I don't know. Again, I don't know how much I really want to say just yet, but you know what? If you've watched this far into the video, I'll give you a little. I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview. I may or may not be getting a certain box that a lot of other creators have been getting lately. So we'll be diving into that shortly. And of course, like I said, I want to get some more gameplay, and I have a ton of different decks built, so I can do deck profiles pretty much whenever. So if you're excited to see all that, don't be shy about letting me know in the comments below. I really, really do super appreciate you. But that's going to do it for this one. So this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.